may indicate about actual student learning. And so as we consider what all this means and planning further work in this area, the text discuss how teachers sometimes are resistant to change. And so that's just a hindrance that we need to be aware of, that they have to be willing to change and to really examine their practice rather than just putting into place something that may be considered effective, or they're willing to do the work that requires maybe a sweeping change in an area. Oftentimes students are resistant to change. They may not lack, or they may lack the effort, or they just are insecure about changing how things have been done. And there's obviously a need for effective feedback systems. If we are truly going to change how we do assessments in schools, we need to also have an effective way to assess its effectiveness and give that feedback. And so this all requires obviously time moving forward, the support for the personnel in our buildings, the opportunity for reflection so that we know that we're moving in the right direction, and then some outside evaluators and feedback coming in and helping support the practices that are being adjusted. And I'm going to move and mute myself and send it over to Tina.
Okay, I had chapter 8, the end and a beginning. Thank you. All right, it first starts about the talking about risky journeys, and practical learning and risk go together. And basically just saying that, you know, as educators, we have to take a risk. We have to try new things. They all don't work out, but we won't know, and we can't get better unless we do take risks. Turning ideas into practice will always be a time to learn. So taking those ideas and actually implementing them into the room and seeing how they work and what doesn't work, that's a time of reflection and how we learn. A catalyst for success is the power of the ideas, and if it brings out the professionalisms and talents of teachers. Taking new ideas and implementing them within the classroom or within your school, that can actually, I mean, and not always having certain teachers that, and I know we're all used to this, but we have certain teachers that are always like the go-to people. But when you take risk, you can actually give new teachers a chance to try new things in their classroom and become leaders within the school. And it can showcase someone else's talents. When new ideas are being presented, the 4 themes should be considered. So research into the practice, deeper implications, developing the formative concept, and achieving impact. We have to follow these steps when we are thinking about or considering new ideas. All right, so research into practice. So individual teachers have to make the idea their own. So you can always give someone, and I'll just speak from, you know, being in the classroom right now, we're always told these new things that we need to try, but it will never work unless I'm able to take it on as my own and find out ways how to make it my own within my classroom and what works best for my students. And so taking that idea, but making it your own to fit the needs of your classroom. Diversity is bound to go with success. We all don't do everything the same. We're all not, I mean, sometimes we might not have the same outcome when we're trying new ideas and practices, but I can learn from someone else. If something is going good in a teacher's room, one of my coworkers' room, and her kids seem to be getting it, I might want to step over and look and see how she's doing things and how is she implementing the new idea, and how I can take some of those ideas back into my own classroom. This diversity goes along with the growing ownership by teachers of the ideas. Putting ideas into practice usually leads to ideas being transformed, which is awesome, because what we see, I mean, I'm already thinking about different stuff for next year, you know, what worked and what didn't work, or how I need to change it, or seeing how well it worked in someone else's classroom. So maybe I'll do a little research over the summer and try to implement those new ideas in a different way. Let's see. Research and development are intertwined. Thus, any theory of formative assessment, can't really see it on the side, will be grounded into the realities of classroom practice. So basically, you gotta put the ideas into practice. You can go to the next one. All right, so some of the deeper implications: enhanced participation by students, transfer of responsibility of their learning to students. That is so huge. That's a huge piece for me. I am all about that, and we are definitely doing that in our district. We are definitely making our students accountable, and we are doing that with student-led conferences that the students actually lead themselves. And this is something that we started this year. So basically, when the parents come in, I had her go get her data notebook, which we started, and she's going through all of that with her parents. And they are asking questions, and they get to see the grades, and they're asking, oh, what happened here, and what can we do better? So I'm going to stop for a second and ask you guys, what are some things that you're doing within your district, or that your district is doing, that is transferring the responsibility of the students, of learning, to your students? If anyone would like to share.
Well, similar to what you mentioned about the student-led conferences, all of our teachers meet one-on-one with students, and they have their assessments and any type of feedback for them, and students there to lead the conversation with the teachers, and they're expected to know what they need the teacher to support them in going forward before their meeting.
Yep, that's really good. Anyone else before we move on?
I think with this stay-at-home order, that has forced students to become advocates for themselves, because, you know, with the teachers sending online assignments and only meeting maybe once or twice a week with the children as a group, and some of the children aren't even able to log in at that time, they're responsible for either dojoing or emailing the teacher when they have a problem, for that teacher to then call the home and get in touch with them, or to set up a Google Meet in order to help that child solve the issue that they're struggling with.
Yes, I like that.
I've seen middle school kids engage in creating rubrics for assignments and projects. It's time consuming, but in the end, if they have designed a book report thing and designed the rubric for it themselves, they're usually harder on themselves than the teacher is.
Yes, they really are. It's nice to see how they think about things. And like I said, we give them a target score, so they always want to go up and above, beyond that target score, and they love to reach that and to fill in their charts. All right, so some of the some of the activities that were recommended could start off with, you're starting off with your set of activities, then your comprehensiveness, and then moving on to the cognitive, or your insights from that. But then there was also a different approach when we're talking about new ideas. You could start with inset program, and then that would basically start off with the sequence flipping, where you have the cognitive affective insights first, then your comprehensiveness, and then your set of activities. So it's important to realize that everything doesn't have to be done the exact same way. Different schools might need to tweak things, new ideas to fit their students. Okay. And developing the formative Okay, concept. Formative testing can be used to improve, formal testing can be used to improve learning and to serve more than one purpose. And while I can't really see my stuff, because our pictures, hold on one second, okay, thank you. All right, so formal testing can be used to improve learning and to serve more than one purpose, while informal assessment can be used for formative purposes. So this is just basically talking about how we use our testing and what do we do with it after we give someone a test. Does it drive our instruction, which it always should, and improvements. Formative assessments are a process, one in which information about learning is evoked in a wide variety of ways. And they gave an example like from the puzzled look on students' face to analysis of that student's response to a homework task or a question in a formal test. But to identify this process on its own as feedback is a serious misunderstanding. So with any test, or like they said, even with homework, we should be able to, that gives us a lot of insight into our students. What did they understand? Where are they struggling? And what we need to do moving forward. Feedback can only serve learning if it involves a teacher with a student, but might also occur between students and peer assessment work. And I mean, I can give feedback to my students can give feedback to me, or sometimes it's better for students if they hear from their peers when they are learning. We learn a lot from each other, so you might have to do like a question answer thing, or have someone do a presentation, and then you ask, you know, the class, does anybody have any questions or anything you'd like to say? Because sometimes it comes better from their peers. They might take it a little bit better, or maybe more understanding. Okay. And just going to end with this. So achieving impact, teachers have responsibilities for summative assessment to inform decisions about the future study choices by and for students, and more generally for reporting progress within school and to parents. So it is our job to make sure that our students are learning. It's our job to make sure that they know where they are in class and what they need to do to get where they need to be. It's important that our parents know where their students are and what they need to get where they are. And that's it, unless you guys have any questions.
God bless you.
Oh,
And
sorry. I thought I was trying to mute myself.
that's all right. Group one, last thoughts?
Why can't I see?
Are we back? Lisa, have you?
I think I
Turn
stopped
screen.
sharing.
Okay.
I'm back to grid. I don't know if everybody else is.
I'm back to grid.
I'm not, I gotta go back in.
Okay.
So what is going on? I can hear you, but I can't. I don't know what's going on there. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know
You're
what
back?
I had going on.
Okay. Group one had the overview, chapters 1, 2, and 8, and did a nice job summarizing that. Group two, implications, chapters 3 and 7 will be, I guess, Shonda and Renita, right? And practice, Vera and Lisa. Now, I've got 140. I did not expect you to take a whole hour. It was meant to be a 30-minute presentation or text facilitation. Do you want to start the next group at 2, take a 20-minute break, or do you want to start earlier? What are your thoughts? Talk to me.
We can start earlier if that's okay with you, Ms. Ellis.
It's fine with me unless everybody needs a break, because this is highly interactive, so we need everybody on the screen the whole time.
Okay. We're going to need to make sure that it works. I'm going to suggest a 5-minute break then, and
Okay.
Renita and Shonda stick with me, and we'll make sure that the technology is working. The rest of you get lost for a few minutes and then rejoin us in 5 if you can. Does that work? Thank you.
And
So,
yeah, and before, and in order for us to see, which we did test it and it does work, everyone is going to have to, because I don't want to have to start it over, because then it'll give us a whole brand new code for everyone to get into. So what's going to happen is, because we're starting again in 5 minutes, we'll just need a few minutes to tell everyone the link to go to, and I'm actually going to have to show it on the screen. The link that they're going to have to go to. As a matter of fact, let me share my screen. Let me go ahead and have my screen shared, Palermo, if you don't mind.
okay.
And then it'll make more sense to you, I think, if I share my screen.
Okay.
So what we're doing is we
It's
wanted
in
to,
Google
because
Docs. This is in
it
Google
is in
Docs?
Google Docs, but they're actually going to be in Pear Deck to interact in it. So this
Okay.
is a new add-on that we've learned about called
Pear
Open
Deck.
Pear Deck, and I wanted to kind of explain it to them just in case it's a resource, you know, before we actually start with the presentation, just as another resource that they can take back to their teachers as they're
Good.
trying to do remote learning
Good.
with their kids. Because as you see, when you get ready to engage in a lesson as a student, Palermo, it is super awesome. It's a very great tool for getting like tons of formative assessments, you know, from formative like assessment from students, because of how interactive you can make it for students. And you can have a whole entire, as you'll see, a whole entire class of students participating on their computers or devices at the same time while you're projecting on the screen, so you can see everybody's responses at once.
Okay.
It keeps the responses confidential. So I wanted everyone just to see, in case they wanted to go back, how they would get this add-on. Super user friendly. Very, Renita can even tell you, because this was the first time that both of us have actually played with the tool, and it was so user friendly that me, Tony, and Renita were able to automatically start using it to make our presentation creative. And then when I hit start lesson, which I don't want to do it yet, I want to wait until I show everyone. It's going to tell everyone to click into. I'm going to have everyone to go to another tab. That's why I wanted them to join by browser. So just go to another internet tab and go to joinpd.com, and they're going to put in that little short code, and it's going to join them to the class, and then we can start the ooh, and I'm gonna have to drink some water.
So what I'm hearing is that there are 2 windows that we're going to need to go in. One, the Pear Deck window.
Yeah, you're not going to want to get, yeah.
The Google
so you'll
slide.
be back and forth. Yeah, you're not going to want to get out of the Google slide, of course, because you want to be able to hear us. But I want them to be able to see, for especially each of the interactive parts, and I'll go through it as quickly as possible. I want them to be able to see what the students can see on their end, on their own individualized personal screen, and then what it looks like once everybody has given a response, which is what the teacher would have projected on the projection screen. So I just want them to see how they can use it as an instructional tool, but kids can still kind of, you know, working individually. Nobody else is knowing who's putting what answers in and all of that. And you can even send it, even if you don't want to do it synchronously, you want it to be asynchronous, then you can just send it as a lesson to students, and it can be, you know, it can be very interactive that way. If you want to do it that way, you don't have to. Okay. So it's a great distance learning tool that they might want to, you know, test out or share, have their teachers try it out and make for their own kids.
We're starting in Zoom, right?
Oh, are we in now? Is everybody back? I'm sorry.
No, my question is, we're going to start in Zoom, and then you're going to send us where?
Yeah, we're going to start in We're going to start in Zoom. I'm going to go here, and if you just allow me a minute to just talk very quickly about Pear Deck and what it is and how, you know, they and their teachers can utilize it. Then I'm going to start the lesson, which is going to pull up the URL that everyone is to go to in a separate tab, unless they have another device that they want to open it up on, because I believe it does work on iPads and iPhones and stuff like that too. So they might be able to go to it on their phone and just have the Zoom screen up too, so they can see. The only reason why I say keep both open, number one, you won't be able to hear us, but the Zoom is going to have what the teacher sees. And when you're in the other tab, that's just you and what you see as just the individual student. So I want them to just be able to see the both. Plus, I want them to see how all of us are responding to the different items that we're going to engage in some brief discussions on. You'll see how it works when we go through it.
All right.
You'll
Go
want
for
to
it.
use it. You'll want to
Whenever
use it
you're
for
ready.
your classes moving forward.
Shonda, you're going to share your screen, the instructor screen, with me?
I don't know how that will, I don't know how that part would work for me to be able to share the instructor screen with.
Okay, so then I'll go into the
So
participant screen.
you're not a student anymore, so
Right.
you're gonna have to stay on Zoom to look at it.
Okay, all right.
Because on Zoom is gonna be the teacher instructor screen only.
Gotcha.
You don't have to go in as a student. That was just practice last night. So
Okay.
in order for you to see it, just stay on Zoom. Everybody else, though, is going to go in as a student, and they'll be able to go back and forth between seeing it as a student themselves and then being able to look at, you know, what the teacher is able to see with everybody's response, you know, everybody's responses.
All right, that sounds good.
Yeah.
We're looking at your screen right now, Shonda, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
And I'm just going to keep it up.
And you've got control and everything's working for you.
Yep. So whenever you're ready, we'll go ahead and Breeze, if you can, before you start your time, if you could just give us an opportunity to get everybody on Pear Deck, and let me do a brief marketing thing, and then we can rock and roll with the presentation. It's such a cool tool. I think all of them should at least consider sharing it with their teachers, because
I've heard about it and I'm looking forward to playing in it.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And very easy to use, and Tony has no qualms about saying that he's technologically challenged, but he got in there and it was very easy for him to jump in and utilize it. So
I'm glad to hear.
yeah.
So after the initial hesitancy Wednesday night, you looked at chapters 3 and 7 and came up with an idea.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Great.
Yep.
Great.
And you were right.
And
chapter 7 really goes into more depth than 3, so we were able to focus more on 7.
Good.
Yeah. They intertwine with each other so much until it was ridiculous. Like 7 kept constantly referring back to 3. So 3 is like the what they did, and 7 is like the how you do it. So 3 is talking about the implications, and then 7 kind of gets more into the implementation, how to implement it well. Yep.
Good. Good. I'm glad you got something out of that, and again, looking forward to this. So I don't see everybody else right now. Maybe I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait on John.
I'm here.
Whenever you're ready.
John is here.
All right, take her away.
Okay, so you can see everybody can see the screen still, right, Dr. Palermo?
I'm looking at your Pear Deck.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so before we actually get into get into our presentation, I just want to just market something, and I don't know if any of you in this class before has seen this tool, or if you have teachers that are actually using it. But if not, I would highly recommend that you share this tool with your teachers for online learning with your students, and it can be a very, very great way to get a lot of formative kind of feedback from your students that's interactive and fun as well too. And so what Renita and I have done, and yesterday was the first time we actually took an opportunity to utilize this tool as well. So you all are actually our guinea pigs today in our first class that's going to test this tool out with us. But Pear Deck is just basically an add-on that you can add to Google Slides. So in order to get it, you just go to add-ons and go to get add-ons, and you just simply type in Pear Deck for Google Slides. If it doesn't automatically come up, click on it, install it, and you just very simply have the program built in. And in order to utilize it, all you have to do is go to the Pear Deck option and open it up, and it will open up a navigation of just all of these interactive templates and different types of interactive tools and things like that that you can put on your slide that will make your slide, as you will see, highly interactive for your students. So instead of them just walking through watching a PowerPoint or listening to you go through a PowerPoint, they can actually interact with activities that you have built onto the PowerPoint. So I'm hoping after you experience it as a student today that you will see that it could be a really great teaching and formative assessment tool for your teachers to use at your school with their students. So once you've created a lesson with Pear Deck, you have an option of just sending it to the students and they just work on it at their own pace. It's very interactive. Or you can do an instructor-paced activity, which is what we're going to do. The instructor-paced activity is actually one you can use in the classroom. You would put this on the projection screen while the kids are on their own devices. Really good for BYOD schools if kids are using their iPads or their iPhones. But simply what you would need to do, and I'm gonna have you all to do this in another tab, or you might be able to do it on your phone. I would recommend another tab on your computer since it's kind of interactive, or your iPad. You would go to another tab and type in joinpd.com, and we're gonna get everybody to do that now. And I'm actually gonna join in as a student as well too. And when you get to the page, you're gonna see the Pear Deck, the Pear pop up, and it's going to ask you to put in this code TWGWY. So if we could just take a couple of minutes and it looks like someone's already connected in there, but if we can just take a couple of minutes to try to get everyone into the class. It'll ask you how you're feeling today, so you can go ahead and put that in. And the teacher can be able to see how their kids are expressing how they feel today. So it looks like we're getting just about everyone into the class, and you'll see the Pear Deck screen up.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how to get to a new tab because with yours, all I see is your screen up.
Are you in another tab? And you should see my screen right now.
Yeah, I see your screen. I'm trying to get to where.
Yeah, Tina, I had to press escape, slide the zoom over a little bit, and then hit my icon for a new window.
Okay.
And I'm also doing it on my phone. So
yeah, and you
can do it on your phone as well.
And you could do it on your phone. I'm doing it on my iPad just to make sure I can see what you all are seeing.
It was
as well.
Join PD.
Yes. So
joinpd.com.
And the code is T. Are you ready for the code, Tina?
Hold on one second.
Okay, let me know when you get there.
All right, so it's not, okay. Okay, yay. Okay.
Yay. So you got the code TWGWY, and then it'll take you right on in, and you'll see my first slide, which is just the Pear Deck screen. So some of the slides are going to be interactive, and then some of them we're just going to be kind of sharing some background information.
I think this is yours. You have 15, slide 1 out of 15.
Yeah.
Is that, okay.
Yeah. And you see the Pear Deck screen, and you see the code in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. That lets you know that you're on the right.
Okay.
So what you'll be able to do is to see what I can see as the teacher. I kind of wanted you all to see how it shows up both ways. You have your own tab, you know, where you're a student and you're seeing it your way and putting in on your own responses. But then as you all are engaging and responding to things, then I'll lock up the screen, and you'll be able to go over, just click over to Zoom real quick so you can see what the teacher screen looks like, and how everybody's responses kind of pop up there. And it's anonymous too, so you won't know unless they speak out who responded to what. So you get kids feeling very comfortable about the feedback that they're given as well too during class. All right, I think we're ready. I think everyone is in and we're ready to rock and roll. All right, so as you know, we read chapters 3 and 7, which pretty much continues to give, as the first chapters did, the implications for formative assessment, and it actually helps us to look at how you would actually go about implementing changes for formative assessment practices. So chapter 3 and 7 pretty much, number 1, reiterates everything that the first group just shared, but it just goes into actually providing more examples of those things. And so chapter 3 pretty much just gives you, I'm going to give you a quick overview. Chapter 3 just tells you what the author was able to do, along with some teachers from Oxford and Medway school system or school district. They pretty much had an idea or a project or a proposal that they wanted teachers to join them in submitting to the Nuffield Foundation, that would allow them to develop some type of implementation of formative assessment into normal professional practices, and they wanted to be able to explore the advantages of this implementation of different types of formative assessment. There was already research out there that determined at the time, and this is around the year 2000, that, you know, formative assessment works and it can help to improve students' knowledge and critical thinking skills and learning processes and things like that. So even though there was research already out there, they wanted to be able to implement a study of their own to see if they were to replicate a lot of those different strategies from those different research, if it would work as well within the Oxford and Medway schools as well. And as Tina mentioned at one point in time, because a practice worked really well and in a certain particular way for a certain district, doesn't mean that it's going to work the same exact way for another district of teachers or for another teacher in general. And so they wanted to see how well the Oxford and Medway teachers and students would be able to adapt to different types of formative assessment processes. So they decided to work with science and math teachers in secondary schools and in math only. And they noticed that The majority of the assessments that they normally gave to the students, although they were good assessments, were mostly summative. So this was a really good opportunity for them to introduce a lot of formative practices, just to see if it would really yield some positive data and growth in student achievement. There was professional development that was a part of it. A lot of different formative practices that were encouraged included the questioning part, very rich questioning, sharing criteria with learners, student peer and self-assessment, and many others that we didn't list here, but you'll see them listed later on. They had action plans that they constantly revised over time as they were seeing how they needed to tweak some of the assessment practices that teachers were using in the classroom. They had quantitative and qualitative data, and the end result provided the implication as well that, hey, formative assessment really does help students to grow, even though they couldn't see it a lot quantitatively within this particular study. Qualitatively as well, they were able to see that kids did grow some, like about a 4th to a half grade improvement, but teachers were also noticing the tangible benefits, which included just the thought processes that the kids were going through in order to be able to articulate what they were learning, why they were learning it, how they were learning it, and how they were learning was benefiting them overall. Is this you, Renita?
Okay. My connection lost me a few minutes ago, so let me know if you all can't hear me. All right, so thinking about formative assessment practices in your own school, and depending on your district, depending on your level, whether you're elementary, secondary, it will vary. I want to hear from you all. How would you initiate change to improve the practices of formative assessment in your own school? Can anybody share?
And give them opportunity to write. You remember it's the interactive written piece?
Yes, yes.
So on your learning screen, you're going to notice that before you give your kids an opportunity to respond, and this was something that, and you all can go ahead and type in your responses while I'm talking, but even in the text on chapter 7, they mention when you're asking questions that it's important that you give enough wait time for your kids as well too, and it makes me think about your ELL learners, to give them opportunities to produce responses so that they will want to participate or have something to share when it's time for the class to share out loud. So if you could, where it tells you to answer here on your slide, if
It
you could go
says
ahead and just
answer
type
question at the bottom. It's green. It says answer question. You have to click on that, and then it will give you the opportunity to answer.
So we'll give you all a minute to do that. Uh-oh.
I may have just messed up my Pear Deck. Can you log in again?
You're not in the pair?
I was, and I backed out of it. Now I can't seem to get back in.
Shonda?
Let me try.
Can you get him back in? You're muted.
I think I'm back.
Okay. Okay. Has everyone had a chance to fill in? Now, Shonda has she can see everyone's responses. So do you want to read a couple? Miss Ellis, you're muted.
How do we submit if we typed it? I'm doing it on my phone, so I don't quite know if I have a submit option.
The submit button.
It's the what? Maybe.
Okay, it's going on. Okay, so do you see a submit button at all?
Couldn't either. I was pressing enter, but it wasn't really doing anything after I wrote my comment.
It must have submitted because I went to another page. So maybe.
And does it say absolutely, please call on me? Yes, something like that? Like,
That's what I have now.
okay, so I don't see Miss Ellis.
I was still typing it and went to that screen.
Yes, and she's not up here anymore. She might have lost connection completely.
I was gonna say, I think her whole thing died on.
Yeah, mine did a few minutes ago. What screen do you all see right now on Pair?
Do you feel comfortable sharing your thoughts out loud?
Okay, so if you say answer question at the bottom.
Can you give me the code again?
It should give you 4 options. For real? Oh.
Yeah. I answered the question, and then when I was trying to find the submit button, it went out.
Yeah, mine too. It just went to, I'm nervous about it, but I think I can do it. But it's not I wasn't finished writing.
Okay, so that's the answer to the next question. If you're ready to share, or if you want to share, then it would take you to absolutely, yes, I'm nervous, and no, please don't call on me.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
what's the code again?
So Ms. Ellis is sharing this right here. Shonda, you might be on mute.
Yeah, I don't know if you all can hear me or not now. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that. I actually got kicked offline. I was talking to you all, and you might not have heard a single word that I said. The one that was sharing about the rubric, students creating their own rubrics for assessment. I was wondering if that person could share. I don't know if they already did that while I was kicked out.
No, some people weren't able to get on. It kicked them out of Pair as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I got kicked out of Pair, but I did say something about creating rubrics. And to me, if kids know what expectations are or have some input in creating the expectation, they'll do a better job of meeting it and the expectation, whatever it is. But I often found that it worked well with authentic assessment stuff, projects, or science fair projects. If you have a kid make the rubric, they understand much better what they're supposed to do.
Oh, awesome. That's a really great idea. All right, we're going to continue on. And for those of you that got kicked out, if you want to go back to join PD, the code is on the teacher page, but we're going to continue on, TWGWY, so you can continue and be interactive with us. All right, Ms. Jordan.
Okay, so when we're talking about formative assessment and the change in formative assessments as you do it as a school and even as a district, you're looking at marginal changes, and then you're looking at revolutionary changes. So in these days and times, especially with the stay-at-home order, we're hoping that more schools and school districts go toward the revolutionary change. Some examples of each: marginal change. This is where change is really not worth the effort. It's where you would put a lot of effort in, and the results would probably typically be the same or very stagnant. Small chance of making long-lasting changes, and it impacts only one teacher or a small group of teachers, and they're doing one thing, and then the school as a whole may be doing another. So it's not a lot of buy-in. Everybody's doing their own thing. As far as revolutionary change, this is what we're wanting to go toward. This is the type of change where it takes possibly 2 or more years for full implementation, because you have to go through certain steps and stages, get the buy-in as you're going through from your teachers, your administration, your students, your parents. Everyone needs to be involved. Students become actively engaged. This process is theirs, not just the teachers. And eventually it impacts the entire school of teachers and students full scale. And everyone knows you can go from classroom to classroom, and even though it may be a different subject, different grade level, you can see similarities in their the way that they utilize formative assessments to track student learning. Okay, so this is another chance. The next slide is another chance for you all to engage. We have a lot of different types of ways to assess students formally. Most of these you've heard of. Some of these are marginal. Some of these are revolutionary. Some of them we put in there just to see, because depending on who's thinking about it, they would go marginal or revolutionary. Some of these are great, but if it's not implemented the right way, it would be marginal. If it's implemented the right way, it could be revolutionary. So I want you to take a minute, and you're able to take your cursor, or if you have a touch screen, you may be able to take your hand, and you can circle all of the revolutionary methods of formative assessments that you see up here. So you can do that now on your own.
Yep, and there are tools. There's a pencil that you can use and click on and choose any color that you want to circle. The ones that if you think that you try to get your teachers to implement it, and it would be long lasting, and it would actually have a large impact on student learning within the school, then those are the ones that you're going to select as revolutionary. I'm just going to circle a few. So we'll give you a few more seconds to do that.
Can I ask a question about this? If a teacher
Yes,
were
ma'am.
to use this, like the ones that are doing their Google Classroom, so when we do it individually, will the teachers get the responses from each individual student if they do it at different times?
Yes, they'll be able to see the responses from the individual students, but you wouldn't share it with your students the way that I'm sharing it with you now. So they have their kids' email addresses, because the kids would have to put in their email addresses and things to share their responses. I just didn't want us to have to go through all of those steps for doing it.
But they'll see the responses for each of the children. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. When Ms. Ellis showed me the instructor version, it was like each page, and you would just scroll down page after page of each different student's answers.
And you'll see it when I show on the teacher page in a few seconds, when I show you how it'll be presented to you, all the responses that each child gave. You'll see how that works, how it looks on the teacher end.
You also said that this could be synchronous or asynchronous, right?
Yes. So you could be in the classroom using this with the kids, and they have their BYOD devices, and this is how you can keep everyone engaged in the learning. And you have the teacher screen projected, and everyone else is just looking at their own individual screen on their device.
But
so if you go to the...
I'm interested in asynchronous learning. You know, if kids are at home and teacher is sending out lessons on Mondays, kids may be accessing it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I think that's a neat thing if it can work asynchronously as well.
Yep. And I'm going to show the responses now, and I know some of you might still be working, but we have 7 out of 8 responses. So as I scroll down here now, you'll see what each individual person, you won't know who though, because it's keeping confidentiality. but just to see the differences in some of what we're circling here. And then if we could just get one, it's interesting how different
Yeah.
each of our
How do I know that my responses were accounted? I didn't have to hit submit or anything like that. It just automatically.
No, it just automatic. It just shows up automatically for
Okay.
the teacher on the teacher end. Yep.
For a student doing that at a different point in the week, it would just be when they go to the next slide, their response would be recorded?
Say it again. No, they don't have to go to the next slide for it to be recorded. As a matter of fact, as they're putting it in, the teacher could see it right then and there, how they're responding. Yeah, okay. It's very, yeah. If the teacher just happens to be in her classroom at that time, if she's doing it asynchronously. But if everybody's up there at the same time, she can, you know, always go to this show responses and show. She can even lock the screen when she wants time to be up and she wants students to stop having an opportunity to respond. She can lock the screen so she can get their focus back on the screen, as you see I have here. All right, so Miss Jordan, do you want to go over the ones that are revolutionary?
Okay, so I see that most everyone chose Kahoot. I love Kahoot, and actually, I need to learn, John, I'm gonna have you to teach me how to implement it on like the Zoom, because I know how to do it, but I don't know how to do it on Zoom and make it visible to everybody. Anyway, so Kahoot is one. Students acting on the homework, written homework comments, which are like test corrections. We put that in gray because that was a gray area. Depending on how you do it, if you're just having them to go back through, correct their answers with no interaction, no follow through, then of course, it's not how it's implemented. Think, pair, share, collaborative inquiry, peer assessment, of course, entry exit tickets. That's another that was iffy depending on how it is implemented. If you're just going to ask them a general question and let them give it to you and they can go out the room and nothing's done with it, then of course that's marginal. Depending on what is done with the data that you're collecting would make it revolutionary. And the bottom, teachers ask students why they do something the way they do and how, having them to explain it to induce higher order or higher level thinking. That would be revolutionary as well.
Yep. And a lot of these responses that we have out of here came directly out of the practices that they had the teachers to implement through the formative assessment project. We didn't make them all up. All right, so very quickly, chapter 7 went very deep into how you go about making revolutionary changes to formative assessment. But what was interesting is as I was reading all of the information that it had and the steps that it had, that it was breaking down on how to make these changes, it reminded me exactly of what we have been asked to do in the 2 SIP projects, the one we did last semester and then the SIP project that we're working on this semester. And so these revolutionary changes to formative assessments sounds like the exact same processes that we've been going through and that you would go through if you want to make any type of big revolutionary change, something that's going to change the way that kids learn, either we're looking district-wide or school-wide, something that's going to make that big change. And because it's revolutionary, the text does mention as well that it does, that it does take time. So it's not anything that's going to happen overnight, but it's going to be something where you're going to have a well thought out plan and know that you have to follow these steps in order for that plan to go to full implementation. So of course we always are starting with a vision, just like we do with our SIP project. at the end of this project, what is it? What is student learning going to look like? What is teaching going to look like? And I just put the example here from the book of what the vision was for the project that they described in chapter 3. We've done auditing of existing practices. It talked about that within the book. We have had to do that. We've had to collect, you have to collect data. We had to look at what the current state was. You wouldn't know that without looking at the data. We've had to identify strengths and opportunities to build on those strengths and what the weaknesses were. So that kind of reminds you of the SWOT analysis. And so they kind of had to go through that. They didn't call it SWOT analysis, but they kind of had to go through the same kind of process. You have to develop an implementation plan, as we've been asked to do for all of the data and that we've been looking at for student and professional learning and curriculum guides and assessment and instruction within our district. It just mentioned that anything that you do, you kind of always want to start small first and work your way up. So you could start with a few teachers. If it's district wide, you could choose a couple of schools and just kind of do a pilot study. Just remember that one size doesn't fit all. Your implementation plan may work perfectly for one school, and it may not work well for another due to demographics or a whole bunch of other factors that could affect it. So just be okay if it doesn't, if you don't get the same results from your plan, because you really do have to take the culture, or what they call the school's ecology, into consideration. You got to have a plan of support. And that's kind of like your stakeholders, who's going to be, responsible for supporting this and kind of helping out. And so there are some things from the chapter that I listed here that would go under a plan of support, training, and critical friends, and definitely got to have leadership supporting you. Can't go much further without that, and getting your parents out there supporting you as well. Got to evaluate any plan that you put into action. So always reviewing your progress, and that's what they did throughout the project in chapter 3. And they had a lot of different ways that they did those evaluations: reflection journals, discussions, and follow-up meetings, pre and post collection data. And then you make adjustments as needed. You may have to tweak some plans here and there for things to be able to work out better with your plan. And then, of course, because you're trying to make some radical changes here, radical changes often are slow. You're usually not going to get everybody in a district all at once to be able to all of a sudden just jump on board, and everyone's going to use new formative assessment practices that you push out to them. You got to give yourself enough time for full implementation. So it's okay, once again, to start small, and over the year or years, you kind of build it up. Just notice that small change is change, and it is to be recognized and praised and rewarded, because it's better than no change at all. And then you want to make sure that you constantly put this change at the forefront of your agenda, not to forget that this is the work that you're trying to move towards, because we've seen so many times, especially within the Wake County district, we are the change every year district. They'll push out something really good. Next thing you know, it's gone the next year and you don't hear it anymore. And then they come out with another program and another one. And so that's one thing I noticed within the district we don't do well with, is just sustaining really good programs. So it's important that you have plans in place on how to sustain your programs over time, especially if they're actually proving to improve student performance. So just some quick interactive questions. The text state that commitment to transformation of learning through formative assessment and overall plan should be formulated in light of this commitment. What should be the core of any plan that you put in place for change? Is it A, goals, B, the evaluation, C, the vision, or D, all of the above? Which one is or should be the core? I got 2 responses so far. I'll wait until we get more responses there. Four responses so far. A couple of you are still thinking. I don't see any more. I'm wondering if that's some people that have gotten kicked out. So I'm going to go ahead and show the responses we have so far on the teacher screen if you just want to jump over there. So this is interesting. So most of you have said D, all of the above. We had one person out of the four to say C, vision. So the response, the correct response is C, vision. And while yes, all of them are important to your plan, you got to have goals, you got to know how you evaluate it. But your vision, you got to know where you're going, what you want your end result to be. Because then if you know where you're going, what you want it to look like, what you want your end results to be, then you would make sure that any goals and action steps that you created work around that vision and align with that vision, and are going to be things that are going to help you to eventually see that vision. And then the evaluation is just a part of that process. So you're going to constantly evaluate the work that you're doing in relation to the vision, and you're asking yourself, okay, it is the evaluation of what we're doing helping us to get closer to our vision. So the response, the correct response for this one was C, vision. Does anyone have a question about that one or want to disagree with it? Maybe this came directly out of the chapter 7 text, by the way. The next one is another quick interactive one we'll do. So using the mind map below, write or type what you believe would be 4 of the greatest challenges to improve informative assessment practices at any schools. So and you could go ahead and start typing in. You can click on the T at the bottom of your student screen, and you can click anywhere that you want to start typing. But if you could just use this map and try to come up with 4 of the greatest challenges that you think anyone would encounter if they're trying to improve formative assessment practices at their school. The text did mention some challenges that the teachers ran into along the way, and it tells you some challenges that you might run into along the way as you're trying to improve formative assessment practices at your school. So we'll give you all and then we're going to show the responses maybe in about another 20 seconds, whether you're finished or not. So we have 5 out of 8 responses. I'm going to go ahead and show them. If anybody else responds, it will definitely pop up. And just for the sake of time, I'm just going to go through really quick and just put share what some of your responses were. So yeah, definitely professional development to support is a challenge. Buy-in was a big challenge that was mentioned in the text. Time is a really big challenge. Resources, definitely. So and I see a lot of us are on the same page with the buy-in. Teachers have not been convinced. That's still your buy-in there. Contradicting district pushes. So yes, definitely in the text, it did mention that school, policies, and sometimes school policies can prevent you from being able to do some certain, innovative things that you want to do unless the district says, hey, we know this is a policy, but we're going to give you an opportunity to break the rules just so we can see how this works out. So it looks like a lot of us were pretty much on the same page with that. Awesome. So yeah, all of those are definitely some challenges. All right, Another interactive one real quick, and we're almost done. When implementing a plan of action for radical change, time is the most difficult resource. Do you agree? And this is actually coming directly from the text as well. So out of all the resources that you could get to implement your formative assessment plan for change, is time the most difficult resource? See one response so far. Is time your most difficult? 2 of you responded so far. Three. Once we get one more, I'll share, but you can continue to answer if you're still thinking through it. So if we get one more person to respond, is time the most difficult resource according to chapter 7? And I'm going to go ahead and show the response. It's taken a while for some of the others to pop up on my screen. So 2 of you believe that time is, and 1 of you believe that time is not. According to the text and according to the issues that they ran into with this whole formative assessment project that they were trying to implement, time is one of the biggest resources, because you have to have time for professional development, time to do the evaluation, time to reach out for support, time to do follow-up. And so time definitely is the most difficult resources, and the only way, according to the text, that you can overcome some time issues when you're trying to make change is kind of substituting one thing for the other. So if you got some teachers that are going to jump on board and they're going to be radical about changing formative assessment at your school, you're probably going to want to allow them to do that in exchange for maybe taking some other things off their plate that you're requiring all other teachers to do. That's of course not going to have a detrimental impact on student performance. All right, Ms. Jordan.
Okay, so the textbook also mentions, it goes into a little bit of detail about supporting innovation. So the screen, you see elements of a system of support. The book highlights 11 types of support methods that are all wonderful, all great. We have split them up, 5 on this screen, and there will be the other 6 on the other screen. The first part under supporting innovation states that it is essential that senior management set up a system of support for those who are pioneers in their innovation. So what I would like for you all to do, and this is our last interactive task, at the bottom you will see, or somewhere along your screen, you will see numbers 1 through 5, and then you will see 5 statements. I'd like for you, according to what elements you feel are the most important to you, and that will be a 1, I would like for you to label them 1 through 5, just to see how different some of our views are as compared to the innovation for formative assessment reform.
So we'll give you all an opportunity to finish that. I'm going to go ahead and start showing some of
Okay.
the responses. So on the
Okay,
just
so
for the
as you
sake of,
see, the bottom one, opportunities for visits to other school, I see a lot of blues, and I think that's, let me see. Okay, all right, I see a lot that agree with that. I see a lot of yellows for timetable for innovation. I think yellow is 4. Let's see.
so it
And
looks
then,
like most, yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, so it looks like the majority of you are agreeing that between commitment and in-service training, that between those two, that's the most important element of a system of support. So definitely getting the commitment of everyone that jumps on board to help with help to improve formative assessment.
What color is your number 1 showing as, Ms. Ellis?
Um,
Is that the blue or
I see it as red. I see it as red.
for number 1?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my number 1 is, my red is number 2. Okay,
Oh, okay.
so go ahead, you go, because yours is a little bit different than mine.
And I'm just kind of looking at what we have on the screen, on the teacher screen here as well too, because it kind of puts all of your responses together, and then you could go back and actually see how many individuals agreed. But we see that at least commitment and in-service will be at the very top of that list, with opportunities to visit other schools. A lot of you see that as the least important out of the systems of support. And then we'll just go on quickly to the very last one.
Okay,
And
and
just
well,
have
actually
them
there are
to,
5 others. So these are 5 as well, if you would do the same thing for this slide.
and these elements of system of support come directly out of Chapter 7 as well. So everything that you saw listed on the previous slide and this slide is what the text is saying, that you have to make sure that you have all of these different elements within a system of support in order to be successful in implementing your plan for change. So a lot of different things, and as you think about it, you're just thinking about how you could, and I'm going to show the responses quickly for this too. It's pretty cool to see them moving around the screen on the teacher page. But how would you prioritize these things? What will be the number 1 thing that you would put at the top of your list if these are the elements that you're looking at? And so far, it looks like the majority of you may be agreeing that release from school policies. Let me know if you see something different, Ms. Jordan. May limit innovations.
Yes, that's what I'm seeing on this slide as well, which is probably going to be your most, that's going to be the one that is going to be most difficult, because if you have school policy, school traditions, the way that things have always been done, veteran teachers, to get them in a change mindset, that's going to be difficult.
Yep. All right, and Dr. Palermo, that's pretty much it for our presentation, unless someone has questions for us. I hope you all enjoyed going through the Pear Deck and learning what type of interactive activities that your teachers could do using this tool with your students. And it's very easy to put together. It's not that time consuming as you think it may be, because it does it all for you. All you have to do is set up the templates.
I love Pear Deck. Thank you for
Yeah.
introducing that tool. That's a cool online tool, and we're going to have to get better at using those things. And I can see lots of ways that could be, well, used to gather input and provide feedback to kids. So that was a neat tool and a neat presentation. Thank you very much for that. So I've got 2:40 on my clock. I hope that, again, the first 2 groups will use that rubric to self-assess how you feel that went. I think we should take a break before group 3, and that's going to be Vera and Lisa Moore talking about chapters 4, 5, and 6 and practice, the actual practice of formative assessment. Ladies, what do you need? Vera, Lisa Moore, how much time, what kind of prep do you need? When should we reconvene for your presentation?
Maybe
What do
5
you think?
minutes.
Y'all want 5 again?
Is that good,
And,
Lisa? It's good with me.
We need a break. What is, how are you going to present? And is it Vera or Lisa?
We're gonna tag team.
And do you need something from me to load this up and to show it to us or not?
I think we can share it with
Okay.
the team, with
Okay.
everyone.
Team, take 5, and we'll see you again in about 5 minutes. Stop the recording again. I had been recording these sessions so that you could go back and watch it and self-assess if you wanted to. And I stopped the recording. Okay, started it up again, and I will have that loaded in a Blackboard. I already loaded the morning session, and now we're planning for one more session tomorrow morning. I have something about Black and William that I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into. It's one of the discussion boards that closed, actually. But I have asked several of y'all to present tomorrow morning also. So tomorrow morning is supposed to be 9 to 12. I do want to start at 9 o'clock. I will not start with a devotional, so please say a prayer over breakfast with your family or whatever you would do Sunday morning while you're home isolated from church too. And then could I please get John and Lisa and Tina to stick around, which means that Shonda and Vera and Renita, you're done for today and can sign off or stick around if you want to. But I need just a couple more minutes to prep for tomorrow morning with the 3 or 4 of you. So thank you. I hope that this was fun learning today. I learned a lot about Pear Deck. I'm pretty hot on that new tool. And sorry about Tony, but I'm very glad to see the rest of you and look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning after a well-deserved break this evening, because that was a marathon day. Thank you very much. So John, you sent me a link for something for tomorrow, and I can load that. Is that the whole of your presentation there in that link?
Yeah, everything else, when I share my screen, I can pull it up on my end.
Okay.
That would be the only thing that that when I ask everyone to go to, they'll have to do it from their computer.
Okay. And what do you want to call that? What is your presentation tomorrow morning?
You know, I don't know. Let's call it
John's best practices?
Yeah. No, let's not do that. Let's just call it okay, whatever. Yeah, that works.
Between now and tomorrow morning, come up with a title for your presentation.
Okay. All right.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate all 4 of you. You are leaders in this cohort, and you've already demonstrated with the stuff you've put in Blackboard and discussion posts how you're leading in your schools. So tell me briefly, Lisa Moore, what do you have to share with us?
Most of my stuff is, well, I'm going to go back and change a little bit because I liked what we did with the rubric. And so what I had was pertaining a little bit more to the SIP, but I feel
people need that too if you
okay.
want to do SIP.
Okay, I'll combine a little bit of it together because of it kind of goes together.
Okay, and this is going to be the SIP presentation that you hope to do to your supervisor sometime.
Yeah.
Yes. Cool. Okay. Lisa Duffy, what did you have planned for tomorrow?
and if this is not correct, let me know, but mine was more just instructional leadership and action, just some things that are in place currently in our building. So it was just going to be sharing out some links to demonstrate and to show what we've got in place in our building.
And you're doing this stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, you are. And Tina, it was an expansion of one of the discussion boards that I asked you to, that I thought was fancy. You're muted, dear.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yay, there you go.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was looking through my stuff. You asked me to share my writing on Black Chapter 4.
Okay.
And it's talking about, the implementation of student and peer self-assessment.
An example from Black about self-assessment. If you have samples and things to share with us, that's a wonderful best practice that lots of people are not doing, and I'd love for you to share it. That'd be great.
Okay.
I don't
Sounds
know
good.
that we have any particular order for this tomorrow morning. I'll start off with something generic and try to explain where we're going. We will just take one at a time. Would one of you like to go first?
I mean, I can, it doesn't matter.
We'll start with Tina then, and then we'll just go through and take turns. I'll throw my Black discussion in there at some point, and when we're finished, then we're done for the day. But I really, first, I'm impressed again by the leadership that you have each demonstrated, and when I think about this rubric, I see you're showing me a lot of this proficient stuff, working with others to ensure that instructional time is valued, working with others to monitor instruction. Some folks are not doing that, and just simply sharing what you're already doing is going to be inspirational for the others. So we're all going to learn from one another tomorrow morning. We'll start up at 9 with me doing something generic, and I'll send you all a link. Any last thoughts before we close for a long day? Lisa and Tina and John, I appreciate all of you. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the morning.
Have a good evening.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.